Hi everyone, my name is Matt Hobson. I'm a drummer percussionist in the UK. So I often get asked by drummers and composers and band leaders how to produce decent drum charts. So I thought in this video I'd give you a proper demonstration using the world famous Sibelius software. So let's go across the computer now and I'll show you how I do it. Okay ladies and gentlemen, so here we have the famous Sibelius software, and for those that do know a bit about it, I've gone straight into the part of drum sets and not the full score. First things first, we're going to set up the page. So the first thing we do is get rid of drum set. No one calls it a drum set these days. So we double click on it. It produces this little box here, and you click yes. And then we go up to the part name at the top, click on it, and write drums. That's better. Now it's always good to let the drummer and percussionist know exactly what he's got to prepare and have by the side of him ready to be played. So if he's having to use a shaker or a cowbell on the drums, it's best to let him know this. So what we're going to do is create the instruments to the left underneath the drums there. So we're going to go to Create, down to Text, Special Text, and Instrument Names at top left. Click just to roughly where we want it. So let's add cowbell. And we'll put that underneath. Okay. So if you've got any special requests for the drummer percussionist, particularly a percussionist, he's going to need to know what to prepare, whether it be his xylophone, splash cymbals, crash cymbals, suspended cymbal with mallets. List them on the left hand side so he can get ready for the part rather than being scared halfway down it. The next thing we're going to do is give him some idea of tempo. Of course, you're going to do that for any part you're going to do, particularly in more contemporary charts. He might be using a metronome, so we're going to produce a metronome marking. So what we're going to do, we're going to go up to Create, Text, Tempo, and then we're going to click on it, and then we're going to right click here while it's flashing, and it produces this menu. I'm going to produce a crotchet, quarter note if you're American, add an equal sign, and then I can add a tempo. Let's just choose 138. Okay. We can drag that again to our left to make it all look nice if you want to. And then you can continue adding time signatures. So pressing T, bring our time signature. I don't want to allow cautionaries or rewrite. And then you can fill the page with all the necessaries. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've written 3 rhythms here that are exactly the same, just showing you how to write drum rhythms. You can get away with all 3 of these really. The first one is commonly used by the teachers. The student can see how everything lines up according to the hi-hat. That's the hi-hat there, the cross is above the line. The snare drum's here, written on treble clef C, and the bass drum down here. It's actually got its uses if you're writing a very complicated rhythm, maybe a linear drum fashion, which kind of like your Steve Gadds of this world would come up with. So I've written something a bit more complicated down here. Look, it's more of a linear style, and everything connects up together, and it's just far easier to read. So if you're writing something like Tower of Power or something like that, that's a lot easier way of writing a drum rhythm. It's going back up. The next 2 are more common. Here we have the bass drum with tails down and the snare drum with tails down too. All the instruments are separate. Last and final one is the more common. Hands are connected, hi-hat hand and left hand snare drum. Bass drum is given its own line down here with its own rests as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now is show you how I produced each of these. Okay, so let's take the first one. So what I produce is part 1 here. Oh, sorry, if those who don't know, this keypad here, if you're looking for it, if it's not apparent, you go to Window and click on Keypad. Okay, so I choose part 1, choose my quavers or 8th notes if you're American, and I do a series of 8th notes. So I don't need to click the next one. All I do is press R and it repeats. Easy. Okay. But what I have to do now is go back over each one and add what I need. So this is why this one can be quite complicated if you're doing various parts on top of each other like a chord. So I need to do a bass drum here, I need to do a bass drum here, I need to do a snare drum here, and then I need to repeat the whole thing. Now, instead of repeating the whole thing, the easiest way on Sibelius is highlight a section and then press R, and it does it for you. Okay, so I need to now highlight this part here, which will be my hi-hat part. So what I need to press now is Alt and Shift. This is on PC, by the way, I don't know about Mac. Alt and Shift and press 1. Again, press R. Hopefully, by clicking on it, press again, there we go. Okay, and because this rhythm is exactly the same on the next half of the bar, again, just highlight and click it. Okay, but everything's facing the wrong way. So what we need to do is swap it up. If you press X, it shifts the whole lot up. And then we have our chart. Easy, huh? Next one. We click part 1, click quavers, and do a whole run of hi-hats. Click escape to come out of that. Highlight the bar, Alt, Shift, 1, and create the hi-hat parts. Leave the tails down for now, you'll see why in just a minute. Now what I do is I click part 4 to keep everything separate. Click on the quavers I need for the bass drum, and as soon as I click on the bass drum here, it sends the hi-hat back up. Okay, so I'll just put the bass drums in for the minute. Now click crotchet and go back and do my snare drum parts. Very quick, very easy to write. Okay, that's the fastest one, I think. Next one then, go back to part 1. Series of hi-hats as before, but on this time I need to add the hi-hat and the snare drum together. Click escape to come out of your cursor. Now what I do here is make the whole lot hi-hat X's. So what we've created here is a rim knock, soft rim shot here, which we don't want. We want a full-bodied one. So we go to Alt, Shift, 0. Alt, Shift, 0. Okay, leave the hi-hats as they are. Click part 4, which it seems to have done automatically. It's probably preempted me. Bass drums in the correct place. Nice and neat. Easy peasy. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you how I use this to create like a pop chart for a function band, for example. I'll do a further video on creating big band charts because of the use of figures and such over the stave. So for now, let's just keep it a little bit more simple. So contemporary music's generally in 4, 8, 12, 16 bar phrases. So I like to keep 4 bars written at a time on the top of the stave, so the drummer can just glance at the music and he can use his interpretation skills to make the part a little bit better. Most drummers would like to use a guide rather than an actual chart, but if you have got something more specific there, then I'll show you how to write that on in just a minute. So I've got 3 bars here. All I need to do is produce some more. So sorry, let's click on the get off my computer system that's recording this and produce lots more bars. Just keep my finger down. Okay, press escape to come out of that and undo that. Okay, that was just sending it down into a system. I'll show you that in just a second. So I've got my first bar here. This is how I've chosen to write, and I want a crash cymbal on the first beat of the bar. So at the moment I've written on hi-hat. I'm going to take it up a line. That's a crash cymbal, and just for observation I put an accent on it. You might not want it accented, but why would you hit a crash cymbal? Okay, So I've written that, and I can choose to repeat the bars as many times as I want. So what I do is highlight each bar here, go over to my little keypad and click on bar repeat, and it does that automatically. That's why Sibelius is so great. And it's also given me how many times through. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So the drummer only just has to count these bars. Easy. So what I do is I wanted to make a system out of that, just having 4 bars at the top. So I highlight the bar line and then press return, and it creates the 4th bar. Easy. So the next thing I want to do is show you another way of doing the same thing where you might have more bars. So let's copy this. Copy and pasting in Sibelius is your biggest tool. You use it an awful lot. Let's get rid of the crash symbol because I don't want that now. Let's go to ride symbol. Ride symbol is on the line. Here we go. That was just using the cursor keys along. Get rid of the accent. Now I want to make an 8-bar phrase out of this, but all I do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and create a double bar. We go to create, bar line, double, and all I do here is highlight that bar, and then press Control, Shift and H, which is hiding it, and it gets rid of it. Now what I'm going to do is press Control, Shift and M. Let's just send that down a second, and it turns it into multi-bars. As you can see, all the rest of the bars are grouped together here. What I'm going to do is press Control and T and write play 7 more, making 8 bars in total. Bring that into here. Now that's really small and tiny, so we can't really see that too well. So we're going to go up to Window, and we're going to come down to the Properties window here. And what we've got is our technique and our size, and we're just going to click that size up. Keep positioning it using the cursors and the mouse. It's around about 26, I think is about the size. Maybe 27 in this case. I like to make it fit correctly and put it in the middle, just so it looks nice and accurate. I could probably go a little bit higher. There we are. Click on that, and that will print out nice, so the drummer can play that and interpret the part as well. Sorry, the iPhone's going off. I'd like to show you now if you want to write a specific kind of fill. Say the band are pushing on the last quaver of the bar, or the last 8th note of the bar. There's several ways you can do that in Sibelius. Now you can write it out correctly. So in this example, all I'm going to do is take that up to a crash cymbal, maybe put an accent on it. That's just my technique, by the way. If you don't want to accent a crash cymbal, by all means don't. Usually crash cymbals contain a bass drum. It's just a nice, neat way of doing it. Likewise, you can write a snare drum underneath it. So if I undo what I've just done, okay, and from here highlight the crash cymbal. I think it's Shift 5. Bring that down into the correct space. Alt and Shift 0. You can add the snare drum to the crash cymbal. That's fine. Let's get rid of that. Also, there's another way of doing it, and there's time slashes. Time slashes are useful. The drummer can just continue playing what he thinks is right in the part, and then you can add that crash cymbal in. So let's just delete that part there on that bar. Now let's put it on the B line here. Escape out of that. Highlight the bar. Alt Shift 3 turns it into time slashes. Alt-Shift-4 turns it into time slashes with tails. Okay, let's go back to 3. And from here, what I can then do is turn that into a quaver, repeat it, send it up above the stave, turn it into a crash cymbal, and there we are. The drummer can read that there's a crash cymbal push required, and if you're being very specific, Control T, and it's telling what instrument he's playing with. If I could spell, so he gets an idea of who he's aiming with. If you don't want to do the time slashes, that's fine. Let's take this entire bar and make it into that. There is another way. What we're going to do is go over to the keypad and click part 2 just here. Click quaver, for example. Now it will always try and fall onto a pulse beat, so crotchet pulses. So I've produced 2 quavers here. I delete the first one, obviously, turn that into a cymbal and send the tail up using X. But unfortunately we've got all these here, so what I simply do is Control-Shift-H, which is hiding it, as we did before with the multi-bars. As they're on the 4th bar of the phrase, we have another crash cymbal. Again, you can write the instrumentation that he's following if you wish. So there's something I'd like to make you aware of. Here we have bar numbers written on the left-hand side, bar 5 and bar 9 respectively. However, it's not bar 5 and bar 9. This is bar 9 here, and this is bar 17 here. The reason being that we have this open bracketed repeat here. So we've got the first 4 bars repeated, so we better change that to 9. So we go to Create, Other, Bar Number Change, and take it to the bar we want. And then take this one to bar 17. The reason that this is important is if you're conducting maybe a show rehearsal, or you want the musicians to start from a certain place and they're trying to figure out which bar to start from within the repeated strain and things like that. It's just easier to tell them on the paper than everyone's together. If you want to get rid of them completely, which is also quite handy, particularly if you're just writing a pop chart for function use, I don't generally have them. You go to House Style, Engraving Rules, pick up bar numbers, go over to no bar numbers, and then OK it. And it should get rid of them all. It hasn't done, but it should. Let's hide them instead. There we go. Got rid of them. Easy. So the final thing to talk about drum kit is writing fills for drummers. It seems to be a black art, or appears to be. It needn't be. It could be quite simple. If you want something very specific written, say if you want the snare drum to follow a trumpet or something, write it out as you would do if you were writing any other instrument. If you're not sure what instruments you want it written on, it's best to write it in kind of time slashes with tails kind of things, and then tell which instrument the drummer is playing with. So let's just write that, like a figure, like a big band figure, right over the top, for example, with trumpet, and then he can interpret that. That's okay. If you do know, by all means put it around the drums. So let's just do a quick fill using that R button for repeat. Just gets things done nice and quickly. You can type the actual notes in, which is really handy on Sibelius, but I often get that wrong. Okay, so here we have, oh by the way, tails up please. It just looks neater in case you want to write a bass drum as well. For some reason it's being wrong today. Oh, I don't know what it's doing. Okay, let's just do those. There we are. Sorry. Yes, in case you want to write a bass drum underneath as well, by all means, tails up for all the drums. It's just easier to read. So here we have the snare drum, as you know now. Here's the high tom, which is the drum directly in front of the snare drum. The mid tom, which is one next to it. And here we have the floor tom. Now some drummers have two floor toms, and we can write that down here. Okay. Try not to put it here for a second floor tom, so making this one the lowest one and the original floor tom up here can get confused with the snare drum. If you're not sure what to write, delete the bar, put some time slashes in. As before, using 3, and simply using your Control T, which is your technique, just write fill. Let the drummer do it. Easy peasy. And you can do that for a whole bar fill, half a bar fill, whatever you wish. That's it. Okay, so here we are moving on to percussion. This will be quite brief. Again, with the percussionist part, list what it is we want him to play on the left hand side. Just as before, we use create, text, special text, instrument names at top left. So I'm going to have him playing shaker, cowbell, suspended cymbal, woodblock, conga. Move all the part down so it looks nice. Oh yes, I want to change this, make it look a bit more professional. And you can change the size of this again. If you go to your properties, you can just drop a size a bit. Okay, make it look nice and neat. Okay, percussion parts can be fairly straightforward in that you can make it up. A shaker part, because it's high pitched, will be on the top of the stave. You can write it like a hi-hat, make it nice and neat at the top there, but quite simply just tell him what it is he's playing, just write that in. Okay. There are a few instruments that do have a standard, for example a cowbell, sorry, the bell of a ride cymbal looks like that. I didn't mention that before in the kit part. That's the bell of a ride cymbal. But it could also be a cowbell if you tell him to play that, and you can just put CW next to it. Woodblock could be considered down here, which is like the rim knock of a snare drum. Again, just tell him. This all looks very complicated on the part. And congas, we can do high and low congas, so we can get that. And of course, you can write your your staccato notes, your mute notes, or whatever. And if you want them to be longer, make it tenuto. Yep. Also, remember that percussionist has only got 4 limbs, of which 2 may be used to be playing congas. You can use one hand on a conga, you're not going to get the same kind of effect. So he could be playing congas and shaker at the same time. But he can't play shaker, cowbell, woodblock and congas at the same time, no matter how good he is. You can put things on the foot. Now there are special pedals where you use a bass drum pedal, so you could have a cowbell on a foot, but you must tell him that. So what you would do is write your 4th part as before. Computer's going funny. Okay, I'd put it under here. This is the hi-hat foot pedal on a kit part. So let's come away from here and make that an X. That's hi-hat foot pedal. But all you do is simply tell him T. Simply tell him what it is you want it to be, and then from then on keep that form. Don't change it halfway through the chart. I've seen that before too. Okay, also remember, if you want the percussionist to change instruments, give him plenty of time. If he's got to pick up a new beta or a mallet, or he's going a suspended cymbal. So here we have a conga here just for 1 bar. I'm giving him 2 beats to pick up a mallet next to him, and I'm going to do a crash cymbal for a minim, or a half note if you're American. Let's make that symbol, and now I'm going to make that a roll. So he's going to make the crescendo on it. So let's put the 3 strikes on. Here we are, and I'm going to highlight that and press H so I can get him to crescendo nice and quickly. Also tell him what he needs to get. So take mallet, quick. Yeah. And he can do that with one hand effectively. This is a good crash cymbal. You won't notice much difference. Okay, just a rule of thumb on rolls. Drummers often see drum rolls written incorrectly. So let's get rid of some of this. Okay, so choosing part 1, I'm going to write a crotchet drum roll on the snare drum. That's better. Okay, and I'm going to finish on this note. Now, the idea of a snare drum is obviously to sustain a note on an instrument that doesn't always have sustain. So, excuse my crassness, but that's going to be brr-da. Yeah, because that note lasts for the length that it should onto the next one, and he's going to hit that note. If you put a tie on it, that becomes brr, in the same way as if you were to write that for a trumpet. He'd add that note value to that note value and not play. Okay, so if you want him to actually play a note, don't write the tie. Okay, don't need it, because the note lasts for that length. And don't, whatever you do, write that. That's grammatically wrong, and it looks rubbish. And us percussionists and drummers just laugh at the composer, because you can't accent a note when it's been tied. Okay, I think that's about it. So if anyone's got any questions, just give me a shout, and if there's anything else you want to know about writing on Sibelius, by all means, just contact me in the comments list below. Thank you very much.